It's a myth that the frog doesn't notice it's being boiled alive and then just dies. Like, that doesn't happen. The frog just jumps out as the water starts getting warm.
As you would.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, so I would. If you're in a jacuzzi.
Yeah.
Picture this.
Okay.
Not hard.
I picture it.
We've both been in a jacuzzi at various times in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Never together.
No, not that I know.
Maybe
of.
one day. I don't know. Who knows?
Hopefully.
It starts getting a bit hot.
Yeah.
You're having great chat.
Having great chat.
Let's say it's 11:30 p.m.
Yeah.
You've had a few beers.
Yeah.
You've been elsewhere.
Yeah.
You and the boys have been elsewhere. You've ended back at the Airbnb. It had the jacuzzi. Someone said in the WhatsApp chat, let's get somewhere with a jacuzzi. Link to the Airbnb listing. This place is going to go off. You've been out. You've been doing something. Who knows what. You're back at the pad. There are 6 guys, no shirts on, in the jacuzzi.
Oh, yeah.
Drinking beers. You've been drinking beers elsewhere. It starts heating up.
You notice sweat forming on your brow. I noticed sweat forming on my brow. Yes.
Yeah, like, someone probably comments. They're like, fucking hell, did someone...
I'm like, shut up, we're having a good
It's
time.
good. The bubbles are going, everyone's having a good time, beers are flowing.
Who gives a fuck about it getting hotter? I don't feel it getting hotter.
It's cold out, by the way. It's a winter's night, which is why you got the place with the jacuzzi.
Yeah.
At what point, who gets out first? Well, this introduces an element of social pressure that frogs probably don't deal with.
I ain't getting out.
I'm not getting out.
I'm fine, man. What are you complaining about?
What are you talking about? It's fine. We're having a good time. And someone's gotten out and they're drying themselves with a towel. You're like, oh, fuck off.
Yeah.
We're having a good time here.
And after I've said that, I've blown up the guy who got out. I realise, I certainly can't get out. And my face starts getting a little pink and then actually quite rouge.
I'm sweating. And at some point, I stop having a good time.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the other boys, like, out the side of my eyes in the jacuzzi, being like, come on, is anyone, maybe one of them will just, like, bail, and I'll bail when the next person bails, maybe. And no one does.
No one bails. I reckon there might be some truth to this frog in the boiling pot palaver.
Stuff.
But, extending the metaphor.
Yes.
At what point does society realise that we need to switch off the AI service?
We need to bomb. Shout out to Yudikowsky. You don't hear much from him anymore other than being vaguely affiliated with the Ziz murders or whatever that's...
I'm not going to get into the Ziz murders. There's a great story by former Down Round guest Max Reed. Max Reed, who came on Down Round to talk a bit, to explain Mr. Beast to us.
One of our biggest episodes of all time.
Literally, to this day, one of our most listened to episodes of all time. I guess because people are kind of interested in Mr. Beast. Actually, while we're on the topic, a post that I saw today from one of those, like, dog shit, accounts that is just there to suck up Twitter ad revenue and post news or whatever.
Yeah.
Dexerto.
Okay.
You might have come across them. I'll show you the picture. It's a photo of Mr. Beast outside the Great Pyramid of Giza.
Yeah.
And the caption is, Mr. Beast explored the tomb of Osiris, aka the gateway to the underworld, in his latest video. He spent days traversing ancient Egyptian pyramids and documenting historical burial sites.
Cool.
That's the whole pose. And look at him. He looks happy.
He looks happy.
That's him inside the tomb.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that's a great arc for Mr. Beast to get into. Exploring ancient Egyptian mysteries.
Yeah, I mean, that does sound like maybe it's sponsored by the Chinese Communist Party because it's just, like, wholesome and kind of fulfilling and actually, like, good for the minds of the youth.
Yeah. I did actually, a mate of mine said that his son has gotten really into some of those, like, Chinese rural influences.
Oh, yeah.
Like Pengji. I can't remember her name. Pengji Wang or something. It's basically the whole YouTube account is like this woman who lives a idyllic life in a far-flung Chinese province. And, like, there's a lot of Confucian values conferred by it. Hardiness, self-sufficiency, living off the land, communal achievement.
Yep.
I think that's nice.
Yeah.
For our kids to be exposed to a little bit of that.
And I think that's a perfect segue into what our topic of the day is, which is AI going to take all of our jobs?
Yeah,
basically. I mean, very loosely.
Very loosely. We've checked on this topic a little bit. over the past 2.5 years of doing Down Rant.
Well, we did a AI Doom episode, and I'm pretty sure we did an employment episode. Probably we've done a lot of episodes now.
Yeah, we've done. So we're going to return to some common themes. But the reason we bring it up is that we did mention in our last week's episode, very briefly, and in fact, some Down Rant listeners messaged me with like, "Can you guys talk about this a little bit more?" Because a lot of tech people are talking about this. But OpenAI did release a new feature the other week, which is called Deep Research.
Yeah, we're going to get into that let's get into that in a sec. But also very quickly, the other thing we're going to discuss is like literally, Salesforce has suspended hiring developers. Google it seems to discreetly encourage like 20,000 devs to stop to leave. Meta has said like Zuckerberg said they're ceased hiring junior developers as well, because AI is replacing all these jobs, blah, blah, blah. We'll get into all of that in a minute as well.
Yeah. So
but yeah, deep research is a great place to kick it off.
It's a great place to kick it off. So we did briefly mention it last week, and as I said, a few people wanted some further discussion on this. So deep research, for those of you who aren't aware of what it is, it's like the latest OpenAI feature, big feature they announced. It's based on O3, which is like their latest reasoning model.
And again, if you're not that familiar with the names, then
that's fine.
That's totally fine.
That's their fault, not yours.
I was as I was saying to you in the pub earlier, and as I said last week, I don't have Pro yet, the $200 American tier, but I'll get someone to pay for me. When I was in the process of asking someone to pay for me, they were like, "Oh yeah, this is their best one, right? 4.0?" I'm like, no, not 4.0. It's based on O3, which is the new version of O1, but it's this kind of deeper.
And they skipped O2 because of a copyright issue.
Yeah, and O3 is actually based on 4.0, but it's just on the inference side. It's just like, how do you explain to someone that then it's like O3 high? Like, anyway, yes, the naming is completely fucked.
It's good, and obviously it's bad with OpenAI, but it's also bad with basically almost every other AI company also has these issues as well. The naming conventions are very bad. But anyway, Deep Research is based on O3, which is their forthcoming reasoning model. It's not out yet, but they have released the mini version of it.
Again, OpenAI's O3 Mini.
O3 Mini, and then there's also O3 Mini High.
Mini High.
Which is O3 Mini, which is better than O3 Mini, but not quite regular O3 level that's not out yet.
Just seriously,
guys, come on. I don't know how you resolve this problem. And considering the fact that actually Google have released Gemini.
They got Flash.
Yeah, but they've got Gemini 2.0, which just came out. 2.0 Pro, which is like their best version. But then they've also got Gemini 2.0 Flash.
Flash, yeah.
Which is the light version. But then there's like Gemini 2.0 Flash Max.
They've also got a Deep Research as well.
Yeah, they've also
which is annoying.
Yeah, so like the one that makes the most sense is like Anthropic, where they just have Claude 3.5.
Then it's like Sonnet, Haiku,
and Opus.
Which you can get that. You understand, but
it's okay. There's 3 tiers.
Yeah, Haiku, a Sonnet, and an Opus. Like it's a bit wanky, but I get it.
I kind of get the 3 tiers, but it is complicated by the fact that they haven't released Opus.
They haven't. They have. Opus is still on 3.0 though. But Sonnet is 3.5.
Okay.
So it's like your big long one with the big text, which is good for writing, is on the old 3.0. So, but this is annoying.
It's worse, but in the mid-tier one of 3.5, and the Opus 3.5 missed its release schedule, and they've given no update, and I've also taken it off the website.
Anyway, point being, the names of these things is just a complete mess.
Getting back to OpenAI Deep Research. So, mentioned this last week. The whole idea is that it is basically, we've talked about this idea of AI agents. So to be clear, what is an AI agent? It's this idea of like you tell the computer to do something, or the LLM to do something. It goes away and it does the task for you.
On your behalf.
It may take a bunch of time. It may come back to you and be like, when you told me to do X, what did you mean by that? And you say, oh, I meant that. And it goes away again. The whole idea being that this is just like a stupid coworker who operates with a great deal of autonomy and might take a bunch of time to do a task, but can go and figure it out for itself. Deep Research is kind of like one of their first efforts to kind of gesture at that in a proper way. It only does one thing, which is it researches a topic for you and generates a report.
Yes.
Now, I'm going to be really clear to you. There's a lot of economic activity that happens in the world, which is telling someone to go away and read about something and generate a report.
Yes.
A shocking amount of white-collar economic activity is that.
Yes.
And in fact, Sam Altman said, he's always making bold proclamations. He's a showman. He's a salesman. We've said this time and time and again.
He's a confidence man.
But he actually said in announcing this, I think that this replaces a single-digit percentage of the world's economic activity. That's a pretty big claim.
Yeah, somewhere between 1% and 9%.
1% and 9% of all economic activity on Earth can be performed by this system now.
Now, I don't think he's actually that far off in that. I think that's true. But as you say, like a whole lot of white-collar work is that. Whether it will or not.
Whether it will is a totally different question.
It's obviously a completely
Theoretically,
different
it could. And I think... So, yeah, just to be clear, you ask this system, generate me a report on, I don't know, the agricultural industry in Zimbabwe. And what it will do, it will say, okay, first it normally clarifies. It goes, okay, you've asked me to do a report on the on Zimbabwean agriculture. Do you mean... a specific part of it, or do you mean
historical, over time, or like now,
or like right now? What do you mean? It'll ask about the parameters. You say, I mean, the current. Give me like an economic report of the current breakdown of Zimbabwean agriculture, and it goes, great. I'm going to go figure that out for you. He says this could take a little while, and it can take up to 40 minutes depending on what.
Well, some people were saying that they put in complex ones and it took multiple hours.
Yeah, it takes a long time.
But for the most part, it's somewhere between kind of 10 and half an hour. Yep. Seems to be like standard, about 10 minutes ish.
It goes away. It does a web search because obviously OpenAI's LLMs have access to that stuff. It goes away and searches for you, and it will come back with like a relatively in-depth report with citations of where it's gotten the information from. These are thousands and thousands of word long reports, and by all accounts, it's quite good. The people that are big, because it's only available on their pro tier, which is $200 a month, as you mentioned.
US.
They're going to, $200 a month US. They're going to introduce it to the lower down tiers eventually, just haven't yet. But I've read a few of them from people that have shared the outputs, and people have been talking about it. And the general vibe is, this is quite good.
Yeah.
It's producing work at the level of the kind of person that you would assign to do that task, which is normally like a junior person.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So like you said, again, to quibble with the wording of it could replace, I'm going to quibble it because we're on a podcast. Because we're on a podcast, and so that's what we're here for. It couldn't replace the jobs because of all of the social context around like actually employing people. This, that,
absolutely.
And the other. It can duplicate it though. I do agree that there are heaps of jobs in heaps of organizations, and we can list. The legal profession is an obvious one. It's also one that people talk about with AI a lot, where literally if you're a junior in a law firm, your job primarily will be your boss, be they a junior partner or whoever they are, a senior associate or whatever, will say, or in a smaller law firm, maybe the partner, will say, a client has asked for some information about this specific issue, go and find me some precedents or whatever. And you spend a day and a half putting together, like reading through other like similar cases, finding the relevant precedents, finding like the relevant jurisdictions, whatnot, and putting together a document that you then give to your boss, who then, and maybe you pull together some of your own ideas. You then give it to your boss, who then actually who'll read through it and then form their own opinion and then give some advice.
Yeah. Well,
because they're not going to bother doing all that.
There's a version of this in
everything,
every single white collar profession you could imagine.
Yeah,
like people being like, "Oh, can you just like look into what are the best practices for advertising this particular?"
Yeah, or even
industry?
Like procurement or whatever.
Yeah,
exactly. If you want to do anything, the first step is go out there and find some information.
And now you can ask OpenAI to do it and accumulate sources in the same way that you probably would via Google before. Produce it for you that gives you a certain sense of like how that particular task is organized or whatever, and then come back with a bunch of information for you to read.
Yeah, and then which you can then ask it a bunch of questions on the spot to investigate further and clarify further. Which, look, to be frank, and big caveats here. One, it makes mistakes.
Yep.
Two, if the information isn't on the internet, then it won't find it.
Or in its own kind of like training base. Its own, like, yeah.
But to be fair, with both of those points, the same is obviously true of a person.
Yeah. I mean, this is the bit like, I saw someone who was reviewing the work that OpenAI's deep research had done, and they did it as an example on a topic that they knew really well. I can't remember what it was, but it was they were like, yeah, find out the answer to this question or find out this particular topic area. And I went out and found and came back with a 10,000 word report or, whatever. And the person read it and they were generally very, very upbeat. This was on X. They'd done a thread about it. And they were like, this is actually like quite incredible. This is done at the work, at the level of what you would expect from a junior within your organization, finding out information. It captured most of it really well. But it was like, but there was one particular thing that it got wrong in a pretty dramatic way. Not a major point, but like a specific factual point that it got wrong hugely. And it turned out is because it had found the abstract of a academic paper, had inferred something from the abstract which ended up not being right. And this person, their takeaway was, well, there was kind of two things they took away from it. One was like, that's pretty bad because it was a topic that I didn't know anything about. I could have just operated on the basis of a completely untrue thing that it ascertained. But it was like, but the second thing was, if you ask a paralegal or something in some organization to find out a bunch of information for you, there's a good chance they're going to get something wrong too.
Yeah.
And you operate on the assumption that your juniors are not always going to be producing the most flawless work at all times. Again, this comes back to this weird situation I guess we find ourselves in with this new AI-powered stuff going on, where it's like it used to be the case that a computer, and the whole point of using a computer was I put in input X and I get output Y.
Yeah.
Or at least something that's like, based, it's a calculation, it outputs a result from that calculation, it's predictable, it's doing it along the parameters that I give it.
Yeah, and when computers get things wrong, it's because the code is wrong.
The code's
wrong.
Like
the human fucked up the code. It's not like the computer did something weird. Yeah. It's like there was a bug.
There was a bug, or you gave it the wrong input.
Yeah, exactly.
Or you had the wrong assumption about what to put into it. Now we're in this weird world where everyone's trying to wrap their heads around, I could give input X to a computer and it comes out with a vast range of outcomes based on probabilities and
many of which could be 99% correct. 99% and 1% just way off.
Yeah.
Well, and this is like what we've discussed at length. When you move to this probabilistic world, what that says to me is that fundamentally these things are going to be really good at some things and really bad at other things. In that this is why, like, for the most part, it is very risky to put this between you and your customers without any humans in the loop. The whole idea of like an unsupervised AI kind of doing business on your behalf, again, the classic example I use is like where AI is good is the Facebook ad algorithm. In situations where it getting things wrong 5% of the time, even 10% of the time, doesn't actually matter. Because as long as it's good 90% of the time, it's fine.
If you get served a TikTok or a reel that you don't like, that is so far from the end of the world.
Exactly.
Like, who cares?
Exactly. It's the probabilistic model went a bit wrong.
However, if you are doing, let's say, drug discovery, you're discovering new fucking a new vaccine or whatever, vaccine discovery, and it gets something wrong with like the fucking folded proteins or whatever, and you get and it could be seriously dangerous if it was injected into a person, then you obviously do not want.
Well, yeah, I mean, and the other classic example is self-driving cars, right? It's like if you're in a situation where you have to, even if it's like once a year, grab the wheel. That means you have to always be prepared to grab the wheel. It just makes it way less useful. If like you still have to just be on edge, or in the case of like, if you're a business and it suggests that your customer killed themselves or whatever. No, totally. It doesn't happen much. It happens 1 in a million times.
Yeah.
Then it's kind of not usable.
Yeah.
In that specific circumstance. That said, there are a million other situations where it is usable. One of them is coding, as we're kind of getting to. But like, on the flip side is, an LLM can write code. Code either executes or it doesn't. Now, it also could execute and have bugs in it, sure. But my point is, in situations where you can actually verify that what it's done is right or wrong, then it's much more useful. Like, you can verify by produce me this code, and then it tests or have some kind of testing in place. Does the code work? When I input something into the code, what does it output? And is that the expected output? So those circumstances, you can see them being more beneficial. Something like writing, where the output is subjective, it's kind of less useful. Not less useful, it's useful, but you have to have a human in the loop. You can't, you can have it like producing slop without any human oversight, but that's only going to be so valuable.
For certain things, yeah, totally. Anyway, the point is that this deep research system they've built, people find it very, very useful. There's a pretty high barrier to it right now in the sense that, you need this $200 a month program. Most of the people I haven't seen evidence that people are using it in like a practical way. It's mostly people are posting about it like, oh wow, this is actually like really impressive. Like I know like Tyler Cowen, who's like the economist, and he's kind of like a free market guy, and I would say that he is the most like bearish, bullish guy on AI in the public conversation. Like his whole thesis on AI generally is like, this stuff is absolutely amazing. The technology continues to absolutely bedazzle me when I use it, but I don't really think that it's going to radicalize the world for a long time because there are so many humps and like hard barriers to actually changing the way the economy works that I find it's going to be insurmountable.
Yeah.
Right. You're going to keep running into like roadblocks, essentially.
Yeah. Well, one roadblock being what I think we were talking about earlier, or at least I was talking about earlier when it comes to like, it could replace a job. It's like, if you're a head of and you're used to telling a junior to go out and like research this, are you all of us like, and a normal organization? We're not talking about a fucking high performance organization. We're not talking about a startup or whatever. We're not, we're talking about a classic,
a big lumbering bureaucratic organization
where
that keeps the world fucking turning.
Exactly, that employs most of us. Let's be frank. That 9 to 5, and let's be frank, you can dick around for a couple of hours, and when you're working from home, you can take an hour and a half lunch. No one's going to notice. No one's going to notice.
Take 2.
It's fine.
Take 2.
It's totally fine. Drop your kids off at 9 o'clock. Start work at quarter past.
Just put your hand up in the morning, stand up, and say nothing from me.
Exactly. Like one of those organizations, if you're a head of, you're still gonna tell your managers or your leads or whatever who are below you to go and do the work, to go and like research. You're not gonna bother. Like, you're just not. They might go and then use it, sure, and they've just made their job more efficient. But you're not going to be like, I can fire all my managers below me, and so I'll just directly manage their reports, like, because now I can use deep research. No, you're not. Yeah, you're just going to keep telling them to do it. You can't be fucked.
Yeah. No, totally. And it's like, there's also like, at the moment there's a talent pipeline where it's like you bring in junior to teach them the way that your industry and company works.
That is an interesting question, this though, in that, yes, that talent pipeline in particular, law is an obvious one, as we said. What if it's more convenient? This is the thing. If it's more convenient, if you are a business owner, or you are, maybe law firms are potentially a good idea, because it actually would be easier. Like, if you're starting from scratch, I can either hire a junior researcher or whatever, or who in the near term will be annoying because, like, let's be honest, the reports they give back, I'm going to have to keep being like, nah, you've kind of misinterpreted, do this, or that work's not good. And you slowly train them up so that one day they can actually be talented and then move into your role once you've moved up even longer, blah, blah, blah. Classic. Like, would you go through all that bullshit? Or if right now you had no one but beneath you, or would you just like use a fucking LLM? Because let's be honest, the LLM is much easier.
Yep.
So like there is that question of what does that then mean for kind of training the next generation?
I mean, that's like, you know, yeah. In a lot of industries, you are giving this shit kicker research and aimless sort of content production work, for want of a better way of describing it, because eventually those people are going to move up, learn the way that the industry works, and end up doing more organizationally useful work at some point, and actually, you know,
interpret the data, basically provide insights, right?
Yeah.
Because that's kind of what we're talking about. Like,
deal with clients, deal with, you know, whatever.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, and like, you know, a part of this comes from the inherent challenge the dynamic that we've talked about so many times in this podcast. The idea that it's like a lot of this stuff, whether you want to call it like using ChatGPT to author emails or like using weird LLMs to automate certain aspects of knowledge work, is all like bottom up. Like, X person, whether you're a junior who works at a marketing agency and your boss is like, you are working on X client and you're doing this work, and they're like, I can make my job really easy.
Yeah.
I can knock out half my work if I just get it to like ChatGPT or whatever to start generating me ideas, and I'm just gonna like, you know, I'm gonna put it in the deck and I'm gonna use it. I'm gonna pass it off as my own.
Yeah.
And then my boss is gonna be like, that was really good. That was a really clever idea you had there. Yeah. And it's great. It's not because there's a manager or a CEO who's like either getting the machine to do it itself at all, or is telling you to use it. It's filtering up bottom up, and eventually, you know, the way that I don't think it has actually happened yet, but this idea that managers are going to be like, all my fucking staff are using ChatGPT. Why don't I just like cut out the middleman?
Because that also implies like, why don't I cut out the middleman, get rid of them.
But
I do it.
I've got to be responsible for it, and I've got to
all of a sudden I'm on the tools again.
I got to look after. Yeah, totally. So it's just there's this weird difficulty with the way it integrates itself. And I guarantee you, think about anybody who's listening right now. Think about your organization. Even think about your job. I don't know. A lot of people have, you know, reached out to us and spoken to us that you are using LLMs and whatever to automate wide swathes of your white collar jobs, or like make them quicker or easier or whatever. Like, if you've had an example where like it is actually passed from like your just like personal tool use in the same way that you use Office or whatever, and it's actually gotten to a level where like a management strata has been like, that job is gone, that job is gone, that job is gone, let us know.
Yeah, I think that the opposite, well, not the opposite, I think that what will more likely happen, at least in the near term, is instead of being like, those jobs are gone, it'll be like, produce more. You'll just be expected to kind of produce more, which then in the long term, like, reduces the amount of jobs, right? Yeah. It's like, there'll just be an expectation that like, whatever people are doing, if managers are more across the efficiencies of AI, they'll just have an expectation of a higher volume output from people, which then over time will lead to like job reductions. But, you know, and as we said before, there's that element of businesses started from the ground up, or small businesses who actually do care about every single dollar. You know, they're the ones that will fundamentally have these new structures of companies. But both of those things I'm talking about are quite slow moving processes. I mean, I say slow, like everything's relative, you know, 5, 10, 15 years. Maybe here's a good point to pause it. We still got to get to, I want to get to are LLMs actually, and AI, I guess, more generally, as it currently is, capable of generating actual insights or not? And the argument that's kind of going on there. And B, talking about devs and what coders need to learn to build with their hands. Do they need to learn to bricklay?
Well, I say yes. You got to get into boiler making, gentlemen.
Let's talk about that in the second half. We'll do a two-parter again. At the moment, it's the new zeitgeist. We're just dropping two-parters every week.
Yep. Could change, but for now, that's what we're doing.
So, yeah, you got to sign up to Premium to hear that aspect of things, as well as whatever takes our fancy.
Another wonderful episode of Down Round completed, folks. And if you're hearing this, it means that you got all the incredible value from that episode and you've paid us nothing.
No.
But we're giving the opportunity to subscribe to Down Round Premium.
Yes.
Head to downround.net and subscribe for our premium product, and you will get an extra episode every week, plus
One.
access to our extremely lively Discord.
2.
And that's it.
No, we're no ads.
No ads. Sorry.
Well, as I said, fewer ads. We reserve the right to put ads.
I don't think we should say that in any of them.